February 5th, 1895. The United States Treasury has 72 hours before it runs out of gold. Not might run out, not could face difficulties, will run out. $2 million in gold is bleeding from the vaults every single day. The informal floor, the psychological barrier that keeps paper money worth the paper it's printed on, is $100 million. The actual reserve, $60 million. Do the math, 3 weeks, maybe less. President Grover Cleveland knows it. Treasury Secretary John Carlyle knows it. Wall Street knows it. And one man, one single man, is about to make them all pay for that knowledge. His name is J.P. Morgan, and he's about to walk into the White House with a legal trapdoor in his coat pocket and a ransom note for the American government. This isn't a bailout story. It's a heist, and you were never supposed to know how it worked. Let's rewind 6 days. January 30th, 1895. J.P. Morgan sits in his private office at 23 Wall Street, the most powerful address in America. Not the White House, not the Capitol. Here, who is this man? Not a politician, not elected by anyone. He's a banker, but that word doesn't capture it. Morgan isn't in the lending business, he's in the control business. He reorganizes railroads the way you reorganize your closet, deciding what lives, what dies, what merges. He sits on the boards of dozens of corporations. He moves money across oceans with a single cable to his partners in London. When Morgan speaks, markets listen. When Morgan doesn't speak, markets panic. And right now, Morgan is watching the United States government circle the drain. Here's what you need to understand about 1895. The dollar isn't just paper-backed by a promise. It's paper-backed by gold. Real, physical, melt it down and touch it gold. If the Treasury can't redeem dollars for gold on demand, the currency collapses. Not might collapse, will collapse. Hyperinflation, bank runs, economic apocalypse. The government has tried everything. Public bond sales, congressional deals, begging foreign investors. Nothing works. And that's when Treasury Secretary Carlyle makes his first mistake. He invites Morgan to negotiate. February 4th, 1895. Morgan's syndicate is ready. They'll provide the gold, but they want terms. Harsh terms. Carlyle reads the proposal, and then he does something that will haunt him. He says no. Too expensive. Too humiliating. The terms are too harsh. He cancels the meeting. He'll try another public bond sale instead. Take his chances. Morgan's response is not calm. He cables his London partner, Edward Grenfell. Politicians appear to have absolute control. If negotiations fail, it is impossible to overestimate what shall be result U.S. Translation, catastrophe. Within hours, Morgan is on a train, not a regular train, his private car on the Pennsylvania Railroad, racing toward Washington. In the dark, he arrives at dawn on February 5th. He doesn't go to the Treasury. He goes directly to the White House, and he waits for 3 days. Morgan sits in Washington like a spider in the center of a web. Meanwhile, the gold drain continues. 2 million a day, 2 million a day, 2 million a day. Cleveland's advisors run the numbers hourly. At this rate, the government defaults in approximately 3 weeks, maybe less. Finally, on February 8th, Cleveland agrees to meet. Morgan walks into the president's office carrying something more valuable than gold. He's carrying a law, the Refunding Act of 1870, a Civil War-era statute that almost nobody remembers. It gives the government authority to issue 30-year 4% bonds payable in coin and sell them privately for gold. No congressional approval needed. You see it now? Morgan didn't come to negotiate. He came with a loophole, a legal trapdoor that lets him bypass Congress entirely and deal directly with the executive branch. Cleveland protests. Impossible without congressional approval. Morgan leans forward. Mr. President, the law already exists. The meeting lasts 4.5 hours. When Morgan finally stands to leave, witnesses notice something strange. A fine brown powder drifting from his lap to the floor, his cigar. He'd been holding it the entire time, unlit, grinding it unconsciously to dust in his hand, while the President of the United States wrestled with the idea of surrendering. That's not negotiation. That's dominance. Here are the terms Morgan dictates. The Morgan Belmont Syndicate will deliver 3.5 million ounces of gold coin to the Treasury. In exchange, the government issues approximately $62.4 million in 30-year 4% coin bonds. Now, here's where it gets criminal. The gold is priced to the government at $17.80 per ounce. The market price, $18.60. The Treasury receives about $65.1 million in gold for $62.3 million in bonds. A premium of roughly $3 million just for the privilege of getting gold quickly and quietly. But that's just the appetizer. Morgan acquires those bonds at approximately 104. Within days, once the Morgan backstop becomes public, the market bids them up to 112, then 118. Some accounts say higher. One detailed analysis calculates the syndicate bought $62,315,000 in bonds and sold them almost immediately for $68,833,000. Instant profit, $5 million, before counting the additional gains from controlling foreign exchange and gold flows. Let's put this in perspective. February 8th, Morgan walks into the White House. The government is 3 weeks from default. February 20th, 12 days later, the bond issue is offered to the public. It sells out in 20 minutes. 20 minutes. The very paper Morgan just bought at a discount is now the hottest commodity on Wall Street. This is where your dollar died. Not in a crash, not in a war, in a private meeting where one man held the legal code in one hand and the nation's throat in the other. The backlash was immediate and volcanic. When news of the Morgan deal leaked, the fury wasn't just political, it was existential. In the House of Representatives, a young congressman named William Jennings Bryan stood up. He had the clerk read aloud Shylock's bond from The Merchant of Venice, the scene where the moneylender demands his pound of flesh. The message was unmistakable. The government had been sold. But here's what they didn't see coming. 1907, another financial panic, another crisis. Morgan, once again, is the only man who can organize the rescue. 1913, 18 years after the bailout, a law is passed, the Federal Reserve Act. It creates a central bank so that no single private banker can ever again hold the government hostage. Except, here's the joke. Who do you think designed it? Who do you think sat in the meetings? Morgan's partners, Morgan's associates, the same banking houses that profited from 1895. The Federal Reserve wasn't created to end the Morgan system. It was created to institutionalize it. You wanted to know who bought the government? He didn't just buy it. He built the machine. That replaced himself. The crisis ended. America avoided default, but the price wasn't $62 million in bonds. The price was the precedent. The precedent that when the government fails, private bankers get to write the terms. The precedent that some men are simply too powerful to let the country collapse. Because then, who would owe them money? Morgan died in 1913, the same year the Federal Reserve was born, but his ghost is still sitting in that chair, running the math, grinding cigars to dust, waiting for the next crisis. And he knows something you don't. There will always be a next crisis.